Bobby here from the Perfect Gentleman, here to talk to you about the Perfect Financial Gentleman. Today's topic will cover how to sort of organize and structure your finances. But before I do so, I'd like to talk to you about a little bit about who I am and what I do. For the last 10 years, I've been a financial planner in the UK, in the United Kingdom, working on clients' financial strategies and making sure that they've got the correct structures in place to make sure that if anything happens to them, their families and loved ones are taken care for. So to tell you a very short story, one of my clients, Richard, sadly Richard was diagnosed very recently with a terminal illness, and what had happened to Richard, was horrible. Richard's a very good client of mine. Last year he sent me a bottle of whiskey for Christmas. We're very close. But the reason why I'm telling you this story is because when he was diagnosed with this terrible illness, his employer came to the conclusion that they could no longer work together and they had to part company. And the benefits that Richard had in place, such as life cover, death in service, critical illness, income protection, those benefits would cease. And the good thing is what we put in place was some private policies to make sure that if that did happen, Richard could continue having these policies in place, and in the event that he passed away or he was diagnosed with a critical illness and he left the company, he still get paid out and all his debts would be paid off. So the good news is those debts have been paid off now. Richard's back to good health and back to work. So that's just an idea or a story that I've shared with you, but there's lots of different stories like this. Now I've got another story I'd like to tell you. I've got a very well-off young client, single, no kids. We get on very well. We've been looking after each other I've been looking after him for the last 5 years. He's got a really high income, but the problem with high income, and this is the only problem that you have, is high taxes. And what we do with this client, his name's Rob, we get together, we look at his income, what he actually needs, if there's any way for us to reduce his tax liability by sheltering money away into his retirement account or his ISAs or his investment accounts. And by doing this, we lock those monies away, we avoid paying taxation right now, and this is perfectly allowable by UK standards. Why is this valuable? Because naturally, a lot of people that we come across don't have good financial advice, that they're not taken care of financially, they don't do it themselves. They try and do it themselves, and what happens is they make regular errors, such as they don't keep up to date with the budget. When the Chancellor comes out and makes changes to legislation, they don't keep up with the current affairs, and they don't keep up with investment affairs. What I do as an individual is keep up to date with all those three things, and by doing these three things, continuously on a day-to-day basis, this is what I love to do. I can look after individuals on a specific basis where I can protect and enhance their wealth. I'll talk about a specific subject today, and that specific subject is taking care of your finances and why it's important. So to give you a background, naturally, when we're in education, when we're going through school, right the way from nursery school or kindergarten, right the way through high school, we're given some level of education, and that level of education is to engage what kind of things we like to do, and what kind of things we'd like to ideally do in our work environment. So depending on what kind of individual you are, you may not be a financially orientated individual, which is fine. You might be an artist, or you might be a scientist, or you might be a perfect gentleman, whatever that might look like. But the point is, you might not have the skills right now to prepare yourself when you're in your working environment to make sure that you've got the adequate resources in place, or the processes to make sure that your resources, i.e. your incomes are directed to your outgoings proportionally, and that you're saving enough to meet your future liabilities. Now, why is this important? The reason why it's really important for me is quite simple, really. If one looks at how one is able to acquire wealth, it's quite simple. You would need to look at three things. One, in your past history, since you've been working and paying for bills and paying for liabilities such as direct debits, or for your phone bill, or for your council tax, or for your rent. That gives you an indication of how you've been able to manage your current affairs, or manage your payments. This is sort of built into what we call your credit report. Your credit report can be found online using various, intermediaries. And it's quite important to have a really good score. If you have a really good score, it allows you to borrow. And borrowing it for me is very important, not because you should be in debt, but because you're able to uh, borrow capital in a way where you can invest this capital, for example, into your first primary property residence. So if you own your own home, after a number of years, you can then build up that property. But as you know, property prices increase over time. As they're increasing over time, you become more wealthier. As property prices increase over time, your debt should decrease over time, and eventually you own that property. Now, somewhere in the middle of that journey, what you can do, and this is a great thing about living in the West, you can actually leverage against the assets that you have. So, for example, in this example, what you can do is take money out of your property. Now, when you take out money from your property, you obviously increase your leverage, your gearing. But when you take out that capital, you can then reinvest that capital. Now, where you reinvest it, it's up to you. Ideally, you should perhaps come to me and we can go through all the options and see if it actually makes sense. Because I've come to realise a lot of good ideas have a lot of risk involved. But if you come to me and we go through the idea that this is a good idea and it makes sense, then great. And potentially the returns that you can make from this leverage deal might exceed the level of repayments that you're looking to repay, and hence it would enhance your wealth. And effectively, that's what we do here. We're looking to enhance and hopefully make you a wealthy individual. So once you get to that stage where you've, worked a long, long life, you're in that position where you've saved enough assets to be able to say, you know what, I can comfortably retire. I can retire hopefully at an age where you're 55 years old, you're still young, you're still able to do all the things that you like. That might be traveling, that might be sports, that might be going to fashion events. Whatever those events might look like, you have that time to utilize later on in life, and you have the resources to direct because you worked hard and you saved and you made the right decisions at the right time to make sure that happens. So I'd like to thank you for your time today, for obviously listening to the podcast. My name is Bobby Whean. If you'd like to contact me at The Perfect Gentleman, please drop an email for any more financial sound advice, and I'll endeavour to get in touch with you as soon as possible. Bobby out. Thank you.